Okay.
Looks like we might have just lost Renee.
Oh. Oh, wait, no, Renee showed back up.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm going to call this thing in order while we have folks, so we can get everyone appointed and can keep doing business here. So I am calling the August 26, 2021 meeting of the Walla County Council on Housing to order at 2:07 p.m. So with that, we will do agenda item number 1, which is welcome and introduction. So I'll start and then we'll go around. I'm Mike Riztello. I'm the city administrator for City of College Place.
Elizabeth Chamberlain, City of Walla Walla, Deputy City Manager.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Zelshireen, YWCA, representing domestic violence survivors.
Sam Jackal, Homeless Housing Coordinator, Walla Walla County Department of Community Health.
How about you go next, Christy?
Sorry, Christy Kurtulis, Executive Director, representing Walla Walla Public Schools.
Great. Can we go with Tim Melia next?
Tim Melia, Catholic Charities, representing youth services for youth experiencing homelessness.
Thanks, Tim. How about Terry?
Oh, yes, I'm Terry Silvis, and I am an interested resident with affordable housing experience.
Great. Welcome. Rachel, hi.
Hi, this is Rachel Elfenbein. I'm the Advocacy Coordinator with Community Council.
And I see Renee Rooker's name. How are you doing, Renee?
I'm hanging in there. Renee Rooker with the Walla Walla Housing Authority.
Excellent. Let's hop up to Paul and then Catherine.
Paul Mitchell, Senior Pastor, Pioneer United Methodist Church.
Welcome, Paul. And Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hi there, Catherine Beninga with Community Council.
Emily and then Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Emily Brown. I'm the Policy Advocate with Blue Zones Project Walla Walla Valley.
Hi, Emily. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Kimberly Powell, and I'm an attorney with the Northwest Justice Project.
Oh, awesome. Great to meet you. I see somebody's connecting. And Mike, I hope you don't mind that I just kind of took over the roll call.
No, I don't care, because with my computer, I can't really see everyone. So the fact that you're doing it so you could see everyone's helping. So
Oh, good. I just didn't like those long silences.
Yeah.
Who's supposed to speak? So is it Benjamin?
Yes, hi there.
Hi, can't see your full name. Welcome, I'm Anne Marie. Tell us who you are.
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Anne Marie. And I'm so sorry. I first tried to get into Zoom and it didn't work. And then I tried it again and I'm here. Yes, my name is Clementine Benjamin and I'm the homeless program manager here at the Walla Walla VA. I've been here about a year now. I'm also a veteran. I served in the Army for 8 years. I have a daughter who's now in the Navy, and I have a daughter who served in the Navy for almost 10 years, and she is a recipient of HUD VASH. And if it wasn't for VASH, she would be in dire straits. The VASH has really been such a great help to her and her children, and I'm just so thankful that that resource is here. And it's nice to meet all of you today.
Thank you. Is that everyone? Hopefully. Look, I think it is. Okay, so we'll go with item number 2 here, which is the welcoming of the new members. So Paul Mitchell, who is the faith-based representative, and Kimberly Powell for legal services. Thank you for being willing to join this group. It's much appreciated. Sam, do we have to do a formal confirmation vote, or are we good?
I think that the group has to have consensus.
I move that we welcome and get these new folks on board.
Excellent. Excellent. Motion second. Any comments? Okay, forever hold your peace. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, any against? Okay, good. Welcome aboard. Okay, item number 3, approval of May 27th, 2021 minutes. I will entertain a motion.
Renee moves.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Elizabeth.
Okay, there's a second. Okay, any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any against say nay. Okay, ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 4, which is the eviction moratorium bridge. I asked that we would have someone speak about this because it seems like the guidance and everything on that is ever changing. Sam reached out to Kimberly so we could get a little bit of education on what the latest bridge moratoria is. So with that, Kimberly, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. So we'll start with the CDC's eviction moratorium. So that was just extended. They signed it on August 3rd, and it was issued on August 18th to most of us. So the CDC's eviction moratorium has been extended to October 3rd. They added the caveat this time that anybody that was covered had to be part of a county that had a substantial or high rate of COVID, but unfortunately, if you take a look at the map, that's almost all the United States. So that's in place now until October 3rd. I'll add the caveat, kind of like you mentioned, everything is ever changing. The United States Supreme Court is actually kind of currently right now deciding whether the eviction moratorium is actually constitutional or not. So we'll have a decision on that anytime now. And then based upon that, it might stay in effect or it might go away altogether. So that's the federal level. With regards to the Washington's bridge moratorium, that has been extended now through September 30, 2021, while we continue to try and get the right to counsel up and going, which hopefully will be here done shortly. So that remains in effect until September 30th, as of right now.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarification on the various bridge moratoria and all that moving forward. Is there any questions on this topic? Okay, looking, I see one. Rachel.
Hi, just a quick question. Kimberly, are you in Walla?
Yes, I'm in Walla.
Okay. Would you mind, like, through maybe the meeting minute, sharing your email address with everyone so we know how to get in touch with you? I don't see a chat in my screen, but I would love to get in touch with you and when I have some legal questions.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Rachel, it should be on the email that I sent with the materials too, because Kimberly's been added. And I would like to thank you, Kimberly, for being willing to jump in and share some information on your very first Council on Housing meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has any like detailed questions, go ahead and let me know because everything is ever changing pretty much every day lately.
Okay, great. I see another question with hand raised. Craig.
Do we have any idea how many people might get evicted when this gets lifted?
No idea. We kind of thought that given the fact that we do kind of start having the right to counsel almost up and going, and that people can be evicted for certain reasons right now, that we'd be seeing a high influx of cases with regards to housing, and there's maybe one a week. So we thought we were going to be slammed, but we're not. So we really have no idea what's coming down the pipeline.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, scrolling through screens, I don't see any more. So thank you. We'll go to the next agenda topic, which is number 5. And this one is Economic Development Administration Build Back Better Regional Challenge Grant. I'll explain this, and this is just to explain the framework of what a couple of us are looking at doing, and should the board approve submitting this application, we'll be reaching out to a lot of folks to build a coalition to do this. So with this Build Back Better challenge, the Economic Development Administration, they end up getting about $3 billion to give out in grant money for the American Rescue Plan. And with that, you can essentially fill out a grant application to build a regional coalition and try to aim it around a couple of target industries. And it's for like middle-sized metropolitan areas and even some small ones. And what's going to happen is that they're going to award 60 coalitions an initial grant of up to $500,000 to do a work plan. And then for the work plan that really piques the interest of the EDA, they will then award 30 to 35 of those coalitions around anywhere from $25 to $75 million to implement it. So the general framework discussion has been between Walla University, the community college, both cities, and the Port Elizabeth has been part of the discussions. And the general concept is to put in a grant to bring back some of the trades programming at the community college, and then also bringing innovative housing technology classes at Walla University, like 3D printed homes. Number 2 would be to do fiber to home across both the cities of College Place and Walla Walla. The port has put in applications for the unincorporated areas through Curb, but not for the 2 cities. So this would, in essence, cover the 2 cities. Also within this grant, you can actually use it to do like workforce housing. So we view this as a potential way to get some pilot workforce housing developed, utilizing maybe some of that 3D printing technology. And then the 4th one is basically developing like a commercial kitchen and helping with the food hub efforts that have been going on in the valley. So right now, a couple of us are working through the Port Commission to see if they'll allow us to even submit an application like this. They have to go through a regional organization, so that's why we're approaching the port. But if they're willing to, we're going to be doing a lot of outreach to essentially identify partners on this thing and develop a coalition, because we think there's a fairly good chance at getting this. I've talked to EDA and they thought some of those general concepts were very compelling. I worked up some initial costs, and I believe the proposal we would be coming in at to EDA would be around $44 million. And it doesn't require match, which is one of the few instances ever that any of these grants don't. So that's why we're looking at really going full force into this, because most of this money, historically EDA always wants like 101, and since they view COVID as a disaster with the emergency proclamations filed, they're doing all this special grant money. It doesn't require a match. So that's pretty much what I have to say on our side. We're just waiting for the port, and then we'll be reaching out to anyone, everyone to develop this thing to see if it holds water. But that's the general concept. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add?
No, that was a great summary, Mike, of kind of our brainstorming and kind of how we shaped the initial proposal. It said, did you say the grant deadline was October 19th? That's when our first Okay, I couldn't remember, didn't quite catch that. So that's the date we're shooting for to get in for this kind of initial round of funding.
Did you say the 19th?
October.
Yes,
Okay.
October 19th.
Thank you.
And it's like Mike said, it's a two-phased approach. You get about $500,000 to do kind of the nitty-gritty details and the planning. And then if you're awarded, if you're one of the 20 to 30 entities for the round 2, which I think is due March 22nd of 2022, then you get the big bucks.
And then for the big bucks, I looked up and if you're one of the coalitions that gets the giant award, you actually have until 2027 to spend down the money. So with that, I'll entertain questions. First one I see is Rachel.
Hi, thanks, Mike. Just curious, when you said that what you're going to be submitting with this proposal includes workforce housing, have you guys plotted out some ideas for that yet? Like how many people and what percentage of area median income would be served, or does that happen once you get the $500,000 to develop the more detailed plan?
That would happen once we get the 500,000. Right now, we're just trying to develop a very skeletal example of what could be covered by this. One of the engineering professors at Walla University, Ralph Sterling, has been helping me with a cost. And in this proposal, we think we could safely swing around 40 homes, as well as getting like a commercial grade full-on 3D printer for houses and so forth. So that is just some of the boilerplate we're discussing right now, but I wouldn't expect concrete numbers really until we get that planning award, because that $500,000 is meant to actually develop the full-on work plan of this. This exercise with the federal government right now is basically spitballing some concepts having to do around getting your economy going, and then they evaluate if it feels it touches on their objectives, which has to do with low moderate income, workforce housing, equity, and then areas that have had distress from COVID, which in talking with them, just with the tightness of our housing market and the fact that we do have a lot of tourism, and that was an industry that was detrimentally affected by COVID, they thought it was a very compelling application to submit. I see a hand raised from Craig.
The $500,000 planning grants, is that within the state or within the nation?
So the planning grants, those initially are within the nation, so it's 60, and then it'll get down to 35. But it's for smaller and middle metropolitan areas, because there is another bucket of money for the larger metropolitan areas. So that's why we believe this is something to be pursuing, as does EDA.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm scrolling through to see if I'm missing anyone with questions. Anyone have any further questions? Okay, I'm seeing none. Just let everyone know, I forwarded the proposal to Pat over at the port, and the Port Commission is supposed to let him know today whether or not they're okay with us submitting this thing within their organization. If they aren't, the backup is to have the community college submit it, and it would have to go through their board. But yeah, that's why we're moving quickly, because I mean, that first deadline will be here before you know it. So once we figure out who's actually submitting this thing, expect outreach as we build up this coalition. Okay, thank you. Next item is number 6, which is the Regional Housing Action Plan. With that, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Mike. So I've shared updates on this effort previously with the Council on Housing, and we made it to the finish line. City of Walla Walla adopted the housing action plan at our August 11th meeting. And that sort of concludes at least our grant sort of responsibilities. Commerce was happy with that action. College Place, they had their planning commission meeting. I believe Mike was last week on it, and we'll be forwarding on to their council. Waitsburg's also on that same schedule. Dayton is lagging just a little bit behind because of some of their staffing issues. I need to reach out to them again and kind of see if I can prod them along to get that adopted out in Dayton. So as far as how Walla Walla is going to use the plan and moving forward, our council restarted their housing or affordable housing kind of ad hoc committee, and Ted Kohler's chairing it, Steve Moss, and then Riley Clubb, and then they were interested in bringing some other folks on that committee. So that first meeting is Tuesday, and within the housing action plan, we the way it was structured as far as to implement it was a series of policy recommendations that was recommended for each city to implement. And so one of the things that we're going to do is I roughly kind of established an implementation schedule for each of those priorities. And so one of the responsibilities of the ad hoc committee is going to be to start going through those and figuring out, okay, what can we tackle first? What makes the most sense, that kind of thing, as well as some other initiatives that are available to us. There's a 0.1% of sales tax you could certainly look at implementing. So there's some financial aspects around affordable housing that group will be exploring as well, and whether we should be implementing that within the city. So that is where we're at with that project.
Okay, great. Is there any questions about this topic? Catherine?
Yeah, thanks. Elizabeth, it was my understanding that the displacement memo was not adopted or accepted by the city council. I'm wondering if you could provide an update on that. I thought that was, an important document as far as protecting potentially vulnerable residents from increasing land rents, if there's redevelopment going on, and probably important to this group especially.
It should be in there because it was one of the deliverables. It should be one of the appendices.
I guess my understanding was that it wasn't adopted because it came in under a deadline or after a deadline. Maybe I'm mistaken about that.
No, the displacement is in the plan. Let me just,
okay.
I'm pulling it up here real quick. I'm pretty sure it is. It was one of the deliverables. Yeah, it's Appendix E of the plan, displacement minimization strategy. So it's in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any further questions by anyone? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 7, Community Land Trust Update. Rachel?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, there's not a lot to update at this point. We're still working with the founding board to establish Common Roots as an independent nonprofit organization. Our next step is establishing Common Roots Resale Formula, which will set the framework for permanent affordability for generations. So we're going to be working with Julie Brunner next month on starting to establish the resale formula. And we're still trying to raise money to fund a director position. Thanks.
And just one thing I would like to add on the land trust thing, and if we can get someone to turn in the application, it'll help. Staffing is an allowable usage of funds with that Build Back Better grant. So I believe we could fund the ED position actually through that for the first 2 years. Okay, I see Anne Marie.
I wonder maybe for the new folks, if you could just give us a little background about the Common Roots and what it is and what it seeks to do.
Sure, happy to do that. Thanks, Anne Marie. So we've had community members working together for almost 2 years now. I think it first started with the Council on Housing. This group struck up a community land trust task force of volunteers looking into the possibility of establishing a community land trust in our region. At the same time, Community Council brought together community members to research affordable housing issues in our region and in their affordable housing study report. And one of the key recommendations from the report was the establishment of a regional community land trust. Since both those reports were issued in 2019, I've been working with volunteers to help establish our region's first community land trust. And our community land trust will be called Common Roots Housing Trust. Right now, it's being fiscally sponsored by Blue Mountain Action Council, or BMAC, until we're a nonprofit, independent nonprofit organization. And what we're going to aim to do is to provide permanently affordable home ownership opportunities to members of our community earning between 50 and 100% area median income. So we're going to concentrate primarily on home ownership and maybe in the future do some rentals. But really the idea is to help households build equity, households who are in this housing market shut out of the home ownership market because housing prices are escalating so quickly. So the nonprofit Common Roots Housing Trust will own the land on which all the homes sit. So the homeowners will buy the homes and the nonprofit retains ownership of the land. The homeowners will pay a very modest ground lease every year. And so it's just a small fee to lease the land on which their homes sit. The resale formula, which I was talking about, is what's built into the contracts or the transactions with the homeowners, which says that you can build equity on your home, but the amount of wealth that you build on your home is limited so that the home is still affordable to the next household earning 50 to 100% area median income, who would otherwise be shut out of home ownership. So that's the framework to keep the homes permanently affordable as long as the homes last. So this is about 2 years in the making. We're getting started with establishing ourselves as an independent nonprofit. We have our founding board of directors that was elected in the spring, and they're moving forward on the articles of incorporation and bylaws, and now the resale formula and the ground lease. So we're hoping in the coming months that we will be established as a nonprofit. And right now, one of our key goals is to raise money to fund the director position. I've kind of been serving as the coordinator of kind of day-to-day coordinator of Common Roots Housing Trust, but I coordinate 5 other committees, so I can't dedicate myself full-time to this project. And this project definitely deserves a full-time director who's committed and has the time to really help Common Roots bear fruit and deliver affordable homes to the households in our region who need them.
This is Anne Marie again. Thanks so much for that. It's been really cool to watch the whole thing develop. My question is for Renee. And this goes way back to when I was a board member on the Housing Authority Board, and that's a long time ago. The land underneath the Washington School homes, is that owned by the owners of the homes?
Yes, it is, because we did a market analysis at that point in time and had a very robust conversation. It's just that it is not a common thing, or it never existed in Walla Walla. And we're rural, even though we're called metropolitan, urban, whatever, is that people want to own the dirt. It's a mindset. But maybe times have changed. The community's demographics have changed. I'm not sure the targeted income level really has changed in that demographics. So we tested the market, and the market came back no.
Interesting. Is there any further questions on this topic?
Just a quick question. Do we have any case studies to know that this system works for other communities? Have we seen over time that this plan does help and the purpose to allow people home ownership over the years and keep it affordable?
Yeah, good question, TJ. There's lots of case studies and experiences of communities where community land trusts have been very successful. This is not a new model in the United States. It's a new model for our region. Community land trusts have been around since the late 1960s and actually started in the rural South. So they have worked in rural areas. There's a number of community land trusts in the Pacific Northwest, several of which have been wildly successful and are continuing to grow. So you'll see community land trusts throughout the United States that have anywhere between like one house in their portfolio and over 1,000 houses in their portfolio. And so we do want to be a community land trust that grows, that isn't limited to a few houses. We want to help make a serious dent in meeting the housing needs of families and households earning low and moderate incomes. And there's been substantial also like academic research as well, really proving that the model has worked in many communities. One of the things that community land trusts do really well is prevent foreclosure. There's a lot of research out there showing that they have far lower foreclosure rates than traditional mortgages, because they provide wraparound services to the residents in the homes.
And one thing I'll add to it as well, because I also serve on the board of Common Roots, is that we interviewed some of the other land trusts in the state to try to follow their lead. So like the Opal Land Trust out at Orcas Island, and there's one at Methil Valley, it's having successes. So we're trying to follow a lead that those pioneers have done in this state. With that, Renee?
I hope I was clear. I'm not, I think land trusts are great. I was just sharing the experience that we had when we did the home ownership project at Washington School of what the market was telling us. But like I said, the market can change, but we just did an analysis working with real estate agents, et cetera. And, you know, our whole thing was how do we market to sell them? So I would look for the experts in the real estate market.
Yep. Thank you. Is there any further questions or comments on this topic? Okay, going through, seeing none, thank you. We will move to item number 8, which is balance of state COC steering committee appointment for Walla County voting members. Sam?
Yeah, and I can stop and then reshare the balance of state COC policies and procedures. Just a little section if anyone wants to, and I can also send this out about the voting framework. It also talks more about the balance of state steering committee. So Walla County is part of the balance of state, which means that we, along with, I think it's 34 other Washington state counties, apply through Commerce as a collaborative applicant for HUD funding. And then a large part of that is that then Commerce essentially dictates the guidelines that we need to follow. They are still HUD guidelines, for instance, for coordinated entry, that sort of thing, and uses our consolidated homeless grant as a way to kind of pass through some of those requirements. And I participate in the Balance of State COC Steering Committee on a monthly basis. It's within that group that other Balance of State committee members are a part of. And if Commerce decides to make a change to how applications are ranked or any of the criteria, one recent example of that is that Commerce is now requiring all Balance of State communities to submit a short narrative on efforts towards achieving racial equity work tied to homeless housing. And so the Balance of State Steering Committee then votes on that. They recently discussed and voted on ensuring that the deadline for that lines up with the NOFA, which is HUD's application. Yeah, that's just kind of a maybe not the best quick and dirty summary of the Balance of State Steering Committee. We do not have Walla County does not have a voting member. I participate, but I do not currently vote. And they definitely have a heart for bureaucratic processes over there at Commerce. And so when I asked them what needed to happen so that Walla County can have a voting member, they suggested using a body such as this to appoint someone.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll open up the floor. That was a very concise explanation of this, so thank you, Sam. Is there anyone on this council that would want to serve on this board, or someone that'll nominate someone to do so?
Is there some reason why it can't be Sam?
There's no reason why it can't be me. I just don't want to be too self-important to nominate myself.
I nominate Samantha Jackal.
And Renee seconds that.
Okay, there's a first and a second. Any comment? Okay, let's vote then. All those in favor of nominating and appointing Sam to this committee, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against, say nay. Okay, hearing none. Congrats, Sam. You're on the board representing us.
It's official.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I have to participate whether or not I get to vote. There's a lot of important information in those meetings. So, but thank you, everyone.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks for moving that vote along quickly. Item 9, Coordinated Housing Fund, Sam.
Yeah, so I went over this and I should have pulled up the slides because I think that was perhaps an easier way to look at it. In fact, maybe I will do that now. I did email out, and I think I forgot to include it the first time, the draft Coordinated Housing Fund report for 2020. And so that's in your inboxes. And that is for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the, what's the name of the other one? Should remember all of the things. The Homeless Housing and Assistance Act. Let me see if I can just easily find the slides. I feel like they're easier to look at. So we did not have a quorum back in June. Which is where at that time I was hoping to get a recommendation from the Council on Housing to pass, to finalize the 2020 Coordinated Housing Fund report and pass it along to the Board of County Commissioners. We have, for the Coordinated Housing Fund, there was a 5-year kind of RFP process for agencies that applied for the funds with the knowledge that they'd be awarded funds 1 year at a time. And so last year, what we did was this board recommended to the Board of County Commissioners to approve another year of funding to those organizations with a 3% increase. So what I am hoping to seek is the same thing for 2022, with the knowledge that there will need to be a lot of work by the Department of Community Health, and then also with help from the Council on Housing on refining the plan for applying for these funds, because given that last year was a hard year, this year's proving to be another hard year. There hasn't really been the time to reassess where things are at, given different COVID relief dollars and that sort of thing, but there's definitely a need. So in the report, the Coordinated Housing Report, you'll see the 2020 revenue over time for both the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Homeless Housing and Assistance Act. And then you'll see the 2020 expenditures, including the first use of, this is the Council on Housing Community Impact Fund. And yes, so those are the revenue and expenditures. I suppose I can share on the report. I didn't have a slide for it here. on the report, we also have included the number of households served. And there is an increase of more than 100 additional individuals served in 2020 with these funds.
Okay, so
Are there, yes.
yeah, so Sam, just understand, are you seeking like an advisory vote on this since there wasn't quorum in June or?
Yeah, so because what I had done for the 2019 report was seek a recommendation from the Council on Housing to finalize the report to then go before the Board of County Commissioners with the recommendation to continue another year of funding to the subcontractors that currently receive funds from the Coordinated Housing Fund.
Okay. Well, I mean, just a cursory analysis, it seems fairly standard looking at it the last couple of years. So I mean, is there any questions or comments on this, or would someone want to entertain a motion? Craig?
I see that in 2020, the expenditures were $378,000 and the revenue was $550,000 or something. There's a huge $554,000. You're underspending by $200,000 in 2020, and you also underspent in 2019. It seems like there's a huge balance in that fund.
Yeah, and I can check on that, Craig. Part of that, which I included a little bit of verbiage on it in the report, is that in 2019 for several months, and then 2020 for a couple of months, there was a vacancy for the homeless housing coordinator role. And then also last year with the COVID-19 pandemic, there was some of the normal costs were offset by funding from, for example, the Department of Health, and also some COVID relief dollars for some of the COVID response efforts, such as the offsite isolation and quarantine, and other COVID response efforts from our department. We will be for 2021, for example, I know that our expenditures will look a little bit more normal than how they have the last couple of years, because our consolidated homeless grant, the base allocation for that contract has gone down, is lower than what it was from past years. But yeah, it's a great point that you make.
Okay, are there any further comments on this issue?
This is Tim. Sam, you may have mentioned it, and I'm sorry if I missed it. So there, you in this slide, you showed that there were agencies or entities that had received dollars. There's an application process for all of that, and that will continue going forward for new, or is it just that those people just get renewed? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the process was for like a 5-year funding request, not guaranteeing 5 years of funding. And the process that we've followed the past several years has been to evaluate expenditures and number of individuals served, any changes to services, particularly any major changes, and then to renew funding for an additional year. And we had been discussing whether or not we should redefine the RFP process for these funds, but because of all of the efforts going on with COVID and the speed at which certain COVID relief dollars have come in, which we are grateful for, we just want to be sure that that we're being thoughtful, and I plan to engage this council in conversations around how we should determine the process going forward, and then also what are the what are the strategies and efforts that need to be focused on. Commerce will be requiring an update on our 5-year plan, specifically what kind of progress we've made and if there's any major changes to that in November of this year. So I think we'll have information and time to be thoughtful in making any decisions. What we don't want to do is cause any disruption in these services during this challenging time. So that's been a definite focus. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't.
No, it does, Sam. Thank you. One of the things that just my thought is that, as we know, the landscape of everything is changing so dramatically, across the board, and especially with housing. And so I do hope that there's opportunity to explore, how the funding is currently being used. And because I think there's even more awareness as far as, equitable distribution and making sure that that funding is available to all populations, based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and onward. And so making sure that we're identifying those types of needs as well as others that exist. And I think this is a great list that are receiving the funding currently. But there's, as we know, there's some new ones that are on the landscape now as well, or some of the old ones have expanded and changed. So I think there's just continuing opportunity there. But I know that there's a lot on everybody's plate. So not wanting to make life hard for anybody, but I do think there's opportunity there.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Craig.
So are you asking for us to approve this report, or does this have something to do with 2022 funding?
So when I did this, I'm still learning. So when I did this in 2019, I presented this report here to the Council on Housing and asked for a recommendation that the Council on Housing approve this report to then be presented to the Board of County Commissioners and renew another year of funding to the existing grantees.
Right. So are you planning on doing the same thing this year, or is this a report?
I'm planning on doing the same thing this year. That's what I'm asking right now. And it doesn't have to, so if you would like to discuss this further, add it on to our September meeting. If you feel more information is needed, we can do that. The contracts are from January 1 to December 31st of each year. I usually try to get this done before that time so that there's no gap in services or in being able to pay out subcontractors. So there's time is what I'm telling you.
It seems to me there's more money available, and perhaps you ought to entertain proposals for how to spend that.
I mean, that is a potential option. I mean, another option to at least get the money out for those that need it is to essentially do some sort of motion where you accept the report, but then also direct that we have staff look at that gap where there's additional revenue there, and then entertain proposals on how to spend it, because I do think it's key that this money hits the streets. Renee?
Well, we've had a lot of different strategies we've talked about from the very beginning for the fund. I think Sam makes an excellent suggestion, is that we have a time dedicated to have the conversation of how we want to disperse the funds. Do we want to be able to use it for maybe the land trust to do some initiative, or somebody or some other entity as it deals with affordable housing? Or do we make a percentage of it just service dollars? I think we need a more robust conversation as to what that plan would look like moving forward. And then how do you deal with emergency situations, that opportunities come up at the very last minute And how would you address that if it's out of an application cycle?
Okay, thank you. Point taken. Is there further comments? Tim, is your
Good
hand up?
question. Oh, sorry, I just have a question. And that's sort of more technical. To what extent do the expenditures need to align with the 5-year housing plan that this organization passed? Or that the county passed?
They have to align with the 5-year housing plan.
So is that something that needs to be looked at when having that conversation?
That could certainly be a helpful thing to look at, yes. And I think when it's a little bit challenging, or one thing to note, I guess I would say, is that the Community Health Advisory Board played a possibly even larger, well, yes, I think a larger role in the approval of these funds and decisions. And that has been on hold. And so the Council on Housing I'm essentially asking you all to kind of fulfill a role that perhaps was not filled previously. But I do agree with comments on further conversation. One of the challenges that I have in thinking about, that my brain has in thinking about some of the things, the important things that are worth talking about so far, is that we'd have to have things in place to ensure that access to any additional funds was equitable. And then I certainly have concerns over any disruption in services that are being offered with these dollars currently. But I am happy to prepare more information and make time for additional conversation, perhaps at the September Council on Housing meeting.
So, I mean, one question I have that gets back to my original point. So, I mean, if we wait to take action on this till September, we have a more detailed conversation. Is there any potential for disruption of services during that time, or do we have the time?
We have the time because the 2021 funds are already in place, and those services are happening now.
Okay, that's just one thing I want to make sure of, because I want to make sure that there's no disruption to what's going on.
Sam, could you remind me when did they initially apply for these funds? What year was that?
Oh man. I would have to look, Tim. It was before my time.
Well, and I think that's important to note, because you've been here for 3 years.
Yeah, I think you were off enjoying your baby. So how old's Conan? It was
two and a half. Yeah. So I think that's important to note, and maybe that can be part of our discussion in September.
So I mean, from what I'm hearing consensus that we should have a more detailed discussion, the allocations, what we're putting it toward, and then by what lens we're doing it, and to aim that for the next meeting in September, have a robust discussion about that.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And this might, I'm curious what this group thinks about if I know some of the subcontractors are here and at this meeting and participate, but not all do. So that's one other thought that I have, is that I think it would probably be good for these folks, for a representative from each of these places, to be a part of that conversation as well.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with Sam. And one of our initial conversations with this, and that looking at that 5-year ahead, was what other kind of plan did they have if we needed to exit? So what kind of strategies were they putting in place to make them sustainable without having to rely on this fund forever?
Thanks, Renee. That's helpful.
Good.
You know that when the CHAB worked on that a couple of years ago, there was a committee that reviewed the proposals and made some recommendations outside of the CHAB itself. And then they brought those recommendations to the CHAB, and the CHAB either accepted them or modified them in some way, and then they went forward. I'm wondering if it would be useful to have a subcommittee, if you will, take a look at these things before our next meeting, because I can see that trying to deal with this in one meeting would be difficult.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, Craig.
Yeah. So, who would want to serve on a subcommittee to evaluate this?
I volunteer.
Okay.
I volunteer, Renee.
Hey, Craig and Renee, is there anyone else?
This is Tim. This is Tim. I'll volunteer.
Okay, Tim, I see Anne Marie as well. Anyone else?
Well, I think it's automatic that I'll be involved.
Well, yeah, that just defaults. So.
Yeah, and I want to say that the YWCA will participate because we don't receive these funds and really have no intention of asking for them. And I hope I can bring a independent viewpoint there.
Okay, well, great. Corner notes I have, we have Craig, Renee, Tim, Anne Marie, and Sam. They'll be on that. So please get a meeting established between now and then the September meeting, so that way we could look forward to the recommendations and hopefully move this on a forward trajectory at the September meeting.
Sounds good. I'll send a doodle, and I will also extend an invitation to a representative for each of these subcontractors if they're not already on this council.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Okay, well, great. I think that takes care of item 9. So item 10, other business. Does anyone else have any other business for good of the order? I'm looking once, twice, anything? Okay. Okay, well then I believe we're good then. So then we're at item 11, which is the adjournment. So the next time we will meet will be in September. So with that, we will be adjourning the meeting here on August 26th at 3:03 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.